As a kid, I was the master of spacing out. I found out later that my spacing out was caused by tiny epileptic seizures in my brain, but I didn't know that. I thought I just had a cool, special ability. We couldn't always afford cable or the internet, so sometimes I would just sit there and rock back and forth. It probably looked concerning from someone else's view, but I was fine. I had my own show going in my head. In school, the teacher used to tell me to look up and pay attention in class. But little did she know, I was completely out of it. I didn't need to look down to drift off. Even while staring right at her, my vision would go white and all noise would muffle. It was like I was in a limbo where time and space didn't matter until it was time to work. That was the downside to spacing out. I literally had no idea what the teacher said. The last words I heard would be, "Okay, let's get to work." And then everyone would start opening their books and writing in their papers. I was too nervous to ask for help since I was supposed to be paying attention, so I would glance at the page the other kids were on and pretend to know what I was doing. Eventually it made me look pretty lazy though, because when I'd be put into a group, I had no idea what to do. Throughout the years, the kids started to notice this. They would try to get me to participate, but reading a textbook was just as tedious as hearing someone talk for 15 minutes. My brain would reject the words and make it look like I was reading another language. After watching me stare blankly at a textbook, the kids would give up and do it themselves. It's not like I didn't want to work, but my brain didn't allow me to read. If I was called to read out loud, I could speak whatever words were on the page, but I didn't know what was being said, and I didn't retain any of the information. This is basically what my brain heard. And the cat and the dog went to the place where they lived, and they ate the food they were given. We'd then flip the paper over, and the question would say, "What was the name of the cat and dog?" What? I don't remember that. They went somewhere, they ate, and they left. There was no mention of their names. I'll try to read it, but the words are all jumbled and I can barely figure out what's going on. In the end, everyone knew the animals' names and I didn't. I guess I should have mentioned that I had this problem to someone at a younger age, but I was too spaced out to think about it. It wasn't until I was 14 when I mentioned it to my mom. We played this quiz game that Dr. Amen from the Amen clinics had. We lost it, and it's not for sale anymore. Also, apparently, you're not supposed to self-diagnose yourself, but the quiz said I had ADHD anyway. We then went to a psychologist, and they also said I had ADHD, or ADD. They didn't say which one, so I thought I had ADD, which apparently hasn't been an official term since 1994. When I would talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they never corrected me, so I would assume that I didn't know this information, which is concerning considering they're professionals. I was given Adderall after my diagnosis. It's supposed to make you focus, and technically I was, but I also felt dead inside. Every day felt like one of those clips where the scene is grayed out and the man goes about his everyday life, and it's the most boring and sad thing ever. What made it worse is that it only lasts for 6 to 8 hours, so by the time I got home, I was spacing out again, and I had a hard time drawing or doing homework anyway. I've read around and found some people take 2 a day, but I wasn't told to do that, and I wasn't going to if I didn't have an okay from the psychiatrist. I never asked though and just stopped taking it anyway. I didn't try any other medication for a few years because I didn't know any other existed. But it also meant that I was still spacing out. After 8 hours of school and 3 hours of homework, there was no way I was going to study. So I never got good grades on my test. But I still managed to get B's and C's on my report card. Despite hating homework, it was the only thing that kept my grades up. So I did it every time. Apparently, it's only supposed to take 10 minutes to get your homework done, but I felt like it took me 3 hours. I remember in middle school, the teacher scoffed at us for not wanting to do homework. He had us all say one by one how long it took for us to finish our work. Most kids said 10 to 15 minutes, except one kid who said 30 minutes, so I lied and said 30 minutes too. By the way, that teacher had a weird name. To protect his real name, I'm going to call him Mr. How. In the beginning of the year, kids would make Mr. How jokes from time to time, saying things like, "Mr. How do you answer this question?" And he'd humor the kids with a, "Oh, you," or whatever. But one day I had a question, a genuine question. "Sade, what do you need? Can you show me how to answer this math question?" "Oh, very funny, Sade. You don't need help." "What? Yes, I do. I'm asking for help right now." Mr. How ignored me and continued talking to the other kids. In all fairness, I speak very gently, so people either don't hear me or hear something entirely different from what I said, but it was still annoying. There were only a few months until the school year ended, so it was like the equivalent of telling an old dead meme. The kids in school never liked me, so I had to mentally prepare for someone to remind me of the time I tried to bring back an old joke that was never brought back in the first place. No one ever mentioned it, but you can never be too sure. Also, I don't space out anymore, usually. I have gained a normal human focus from something called neurofeedback, so I'll never need to ask a teacher for math help again. And also, I'm an adult.